Hi guys. Today's topic is about business culture in Asia, Africa and the Middle East. The previous topic discussed the Western cultures which comprise the European, American and Austro-Asian cluster. The topic also took into consideration the emerging markets including Turkey, Russia and Brazil, the last two of which are classified as BRICS countries, together with India, China, and South Africa. The later three countries will be discussed in this topic. This topic will cover aspects of the other cluster and countries as outlined in the Globe project. This will be done in a similar way to that used in the previous chapter. A cultural feature will be described which relates to the history, geography, and/or religion of one or more countries from each cluster, and which it is reflected in work-related values and business practices. There are two learning objectives in this topic, and I hope that by the end of this topic, you should be able to first understand the Asian cultures, and second, understand the African and Middle East culture. When comparing business management style across countries, it is important to be aware that differences in management thinking affect the way business is done in the eastern, western, northern, and southern parts of the world. In other words, the ideas about how to do business may differ between people and influence their thinking and acting in their respective managerial environments. Case and core researchers are convinced that there are different epistemological approaches to thinking. They suggest that managers can be divided into two main categories at micro level: Eastern and Western. Eastern including Eastern Asia, whereas Western we have Europe and North America. Western managers deal with managerial issues using a deductive thinking approach, which is defined as a process of drawing logical consequences from premises. In this way, consequences or outcomes are derived from what is assumed, whereas for the Eastern managers, they deal with managerial issues using inductive thinking approach, which is a process of seeking new knowledge which starts with a generalization and concludes with a particular. This table outlines the general schemas or categories and the main differences in these two thinking approaches, the deductive and inductive thinking approaches. This can help in understanding how the managers from different backgrounds resolve their problems and challenges. As aforementioned, this topic will base on the Globe Cultural Cluster, but in specific four clusters, which are East Asia, also known as Confucian Asia, Southern Asia, Africa, and Middle East cluster. Okay, we will examine the two Asian clusters featuring in the Globe Culture cluster, Confucian Asia and Southern Asia. A clear distinction needs to be made between these two clusters. The Confucian Asia cluster, as its name implies, has undergone the influence of Confucian ideology. The Southern Asia cluster, on the other hand, contains many different religions and ethnic groups which live in a peaceful coexistence. There is, however, one feature which both clusters share, and that is to do with the way relationships are managed. Unlike the West, business in Asian countries is as much to do with the relationship between the parties concerned as the actual transaction itself. This entails paying considerable attention to building trust and establishing respect while displaying the utmost courtesy, particularly towards those in senior position. harmony between the participants of any meeting is required. So, everything must be done in a courteous, differential manner to ensure that nobody is offended or loses face. If harmony is maintained, confidence and trust will build, and this in turn will form the basis of consensus and eventual agreement on a deal. Patience is of the essence. Time is needed to establish a relationship, to decide whether a deal can be made and if it can, to actually make the deal. All these elements cause Westerners considerable frustration when trying to do business in Asia. They often have to try to make deals under time pressure, so go for the hard sell, assuming that vigorous handshakes and tales of past successes will immediately put them in a good light. Egocentric, brash behavior does not encourage the establishment of a harmonious relationship, let alone any attempt by the Westerner to impose a deadline on any deal. Nevertheless, deals are made, relationships between Asia and the West do develop, and more joint ventures or partnerships are formed. Asians are always interested in a good deal. The basis has to be right. Trust is the key component for establishing a good relationship. We will examine the question of relation building a little more closely in the two Asian clusters. We will first address this issue in China, Japan, and South Korea. Confucianism is a philosophy developed from the teaching of Confucius. Confucianism eventually spread from China to other parts of Asia, to Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Even today, Confucius' values still have an important role in East Asia life, even as the pace of modernization increases. The Chinese and Guanxi. Relationships in China are the key business success. Building up a strong network of such relationships, referred to as Guanxi, is the preoccupation of Chinese businessmen. Trust and confidence are vital elements of such relationship, so that transactions made between people in close relationship do not need to be made in contractual form. In fact, Guanxi go much further than as elaborate network of relationship. Those in the network both grant favors and expect eventually to receive favors in return. As Westerners have discovered, it can be difficult setting up relationship without using others who are themselves all favors. When Guanxi with someone has been achieved, then the business of penetrating the Chinese market is made easier. Those Western companies in business in China are aware of the continual need to develop and maintain this special relationship and will pay them explicit attention in the organization of the activities. A member of staff or whole department will be concerned with Guanxi or public relation administration. This entails maintaining good relations not just with customers and suppliers, but also with local authorities, financial institutions, and tax offices. Related to this notion of 面子, meaning face, the need to maintain your own dignity and that of others has already been mentioned as a general characteristic of relationship in China. In China, this is taken a step further. Here, it is to do with your personal and public reputation, to be maintained at all costs and to be used to influence other people in their decision making. Direct criticism or confrontation of anyone related to business activities is not only an invitation for some kind of damaging retribution, but also result in damage to the 面子 of the person who has made the criticism and thereby harm the other. There is also renqing, meaning human feeling, which refer the need to empathy and people skill in a business setting and exchange of favors. On the other hand, we have the Japanese and wa. Harmony is also a term that can be applied to the culture of Japanese society. The concept of wa, the spirit of harmony, is a principle of Japanese thought, one applied to all relationships, even to the relationship with nature. This spirit is reflected in the considerable degree of collaborative behavior and consensus building within an organization. This behavior is fundamental to decision making in business and involve proposal being discussed informally on the work floor before being pushed up through the organization hierarchy, where each level of management give its input and suggestion. The managers are to be seen more as facilitator in making decision rather than the actual decision maker. Building a consensus within the organization may take time through the need to go into detailed discussion and to give everyone the feeling that they are participating in the decision making process. Eventually, the proposal reach the top and are acted on. The idea of war is also reflected in the relationship between the organization and its employees. In return for an employee's loyalty and commitment to an organization, the employer will provide job security. In some larger industrial companies, this mutual commitment can be for life. This interdependent relationship follow on from other similar relationships which the working Japanese have experienced in their life with family, school, and university. All of them require mutual commitment and loyalty. Some observers see a greater loyalty behind this relationship, that of loyalty to the country. The individual employee identifies with his or her colleague, who as a group identify with the company, which in turn identifies the economic needs of Japan. The whole process of consensus building may seem long and drawn out to Western eyes. It must, however, be taken into account when doing business in Japan, along with the Japanese disdain of individualism and self assertion. Moreover, when the implementation phase of a deal is reached, everything happens quickly and enthusiastically. The South Koreans and the chaebol. Throughout most of its history, Korea has been invaded, influenced, and fought over by its larger neighbors, including China and Japan. The Second World War and Japan's eventual defeat meant the end of Korea's last occupation, but also the division of the countries into the communist USSR-backed North Korea and the US-backed South Korea. North Korea remains outside the global business environment, so South Korea will be the focus here. One invader that changed Korean norms and values China. Its Joseon dynasty ruled the country for more than 500 years, made Confucianism the state religion. It focused on family life and the need to protect family members and to enhance family fortunes, has in turn influenced the way South Korea has developed its economy. The meteoric rise of the South Korea economy since the 1960s is no small part due to the role of the extended family in the development of a network of conglomerate businesses. These conglomerates or chaebols are each active in a large number of business sectors. They are owned by families and run by family members. Each chaebol, of which there are around 60, is a combination of companies held together by cross-ownership and cross-subsidies. As with any family this part of the world, The leader is autocratic and at the head of a very strict hierarchy. At the same time, relations between members of the clan are strongly communitarian. Samsung, Hyundai, and LG Group are among the biggest and most prominent chaebol in the South Korea. Next, the Southern Asia cluster. The phenomenon of family businesses, one that Indians share with the other Asian cultures. Whether you are in India, in Malaysia, or in Indonesia, you will find the same preponderance of family firm, and this holds true in all the economic sectors. However, this does not mean that these companies are not without their problem, especially when they break with tradition. Apart from India, Thailand also has a business culture that embraces the principle of the Buddhist religion. Indian culture, while displaying many of the features shared in Asia, places particular emphasis on the family. Every company employee works for the family to maintain and enhance its fortunes. Loyalty to the family takes priority over loyalty to the company. Although here too a strong loyalty may develop towards the professional group involved. Loyalty to both family and group can become entwined. Success in your profession will give your family added status. This goes, of course, particularly for those who are engaged in a family business. It is in the family businesses environment that the hard-working nature of Indians is particularly evident. Material success is important, not so much for the individual, but more for the sake of maintaining the family honor and ensuring a sound future for the family offspring. To be successful involve not just working long hours, but also being creative, coming up with new ideas, and trying them out with panicky. There may be failures, but this is less to do with personal competence, more to do with faith. The Hindu religion, shared by three-quarters of the population, has ingrained a deep sense of fatalism into its followers. As Lewis notes, this removes any stigma attached to failure. This attitude is reflected in business where, generally speaking, Indians are not reluctant to take risks. Just as Indians accept the hierarchy of gods in their religion, so they accept the strict social hierarchy in their society and the hierarchies in the business environment. They show considerable respect towards their seniors in all aspects of their life, but also expect this to fulfill the obligation that power bestows. The father is obeyed, but is expected to do everything to promote the family well-being. The manager may behave in authoritarian way, but is expected in turn to show care and consideration towards his employees. During research carried out among Indian companies, it was remarked that many of senior executives mentioned that the level of hierarchy had to be respected and were an important consideration in relationship building in North India. Shokar, who reports the Indian specific findings of the Globe project, refers to the many ongoing changes in the nature of Indian society as reported by Indian Survey. He refers to the weakening of the caste system as well as liberalization and restructuring of the economy. We will consider Africa in terms of sub-Saharan Africa, including South Africa. This has been done because North Africa is seen as closer culturally to the Middle East. African countries had their frontiers defined by the West European colonists, who divided the continent between themselves at the start of the 19th century. Ethnic groupings or tribes found themselves divided by political boundaries drawn on a map. National identities are difficult to pinpoint, with various tribes inhabiting one arbitrarily defined country. African inhabitants are diverse in every way: languages, religions, dwellings, and economic activities. They live in a wide range of society, some archaic, others advanced. The majority of its people live outside towns and cities in primitive cultures where archaic animist religion determine the social order. This organization is based on the patriarchal family, following strict hierarchy in which the patriarch has absolute authority over the whole community of lineage or clan. This authority is generally handed down through the lineage of the patriarch. The rainbow South Africa recently adopted symbol reflects the country's huge cultural diversity. Apart from the indigenous black peoples, there are the white Europeans, Indians, Chinese, and other immigrants from various countries in Asia. Since the dismantling of the policy of apartheid, which not only allowed the white minority to maintain its domination of the country through control of its economic and social system, but also institutionalized racial discrimination. South Africa has confidently promoted its multicultural society and is attempting to draw diverse ethnic, cultural, and religious groups into the social and economic development of the country. The increasing migration to towns from the country, as mentioned earlier, concerning Africa as a whole, has helped create a sharp urban-rural contrast in South African society. In the rural areas, traditional values still apply, such as the head of the family determines the manner in which business takes place and the way it is carried out. Tribal family connection can play an important role in this process, even when it comes to doing business with companies in neighboring countries. Those who have moved into urban areas are subjected to the many influences of the others living there, including the large inflow of migrants from neighboring countries. At the same time, they may well encounter a professional, top down managerial style, one which is more task focused. The Middle East, stretching from Iraq to the Arabian Peninsula and along the north coast of Africa, has for centuries been the crossroad where West and East have met. Here, the inhabitants have successfully traded between the two, buying and selling the goods from other countries as well as their own. Five of these countries in North Africa, such as Mauritania, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, are often referred to collectively by the Arab word Maghreb. All these countries are often clustered together because of the many cultural features they share. Language and culture are unifying factors, with the Islam religion providing an overarching body of belief and a strong sense of identity and community. Islam spread in the 7th century, and along with it, the Arab language, which had once been a tribal language in the Arab Peninsula. The present Arab states were formed following the breakup of the Ottoman Empire during the First World War. We will focus specifically on the Arabs of the Middle East, the geographical term created in the West to describe the group of countries in this part of the world. Both African and the Middle East cluster emphasize on human relationship and collectivism. For instance, the family remains at the basis of Arab social structure. As already witnessed in Asia, this means the broader notion of family, a kin group or clan involving several households and cousins on the father's side. The welfare of the family is of primary concern. Family ties bring security but also commitments. This can override the interest of close members in favor of nephews or cousins in the interest of the clan as a whole are better served. This slide explains some do and don'ts in the Middle East culture. To note a few, the phrase Inshallah, often translated as God willing, of if Allah wishes, is one often used in everyday conversation and reflects deep-rooted belief in predestination and fatalism. It use also emphasize the extreme sensitivity shown to the context of any discussion. Its exact meaning depends on the subject in hand, the particular purpose of the discussion, and the relationship between the individuals involved. On some occasions, it can mean yes, on others, no. Sometimes it can mean I will arrange it, other time, don't discuss this further. Communication, therefore, can be hazardous affair for not only outsiders but also for any translator involved, particularly because they must also take account of the intonation and body language used. BRICS countries refer to Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Both Brazil and Russia was discussed in the previous topic as the two countries located in the Western world, whereas India, China, and South Africa are discussed earlier in this topic. This topic has highlighted the importance of relationship and networks in this cluster, expressed, for example, in the form of Guanxi in China, the Karma in India, and has shown generally how Confucianism and Buddhism influence economic activity. That's all for now. Thank you and see you next week. Bye.